A very good morning to you once again, and a warm welcome to everybody to our weekly Sunday morning look at the Gospel of Mark in the New Testament. And we've been looking at this on a virtual way on Facebook or on YouTube for these last 6 or 7 weeks that we've been in lockdown, and that's what we're doing again this morning. So my thanks to you for joining me, and ask the Lord's blessing upon us all as we look through his word once again this morning. As I promised last week, we are leaving chapter 10, which we've spent the last couple of weeks, a good couple of weeks, looking at Mark chapter 10. We're leaving it because we finished it last week, and we are heading into the newness of a new chapter, Mark chapter 11. And if you were to read it all this morning, Mark 11, then you would realize that it has three main stories to it from start to finish. Jesus is involved in three main stories in the chapter, and we're going to spend this Sunday morning and certainly next Sunday morning and maybe the Sunday morning after that looking at the first of them, the arrival of Jesus into the city of Jerusalem. We spent the last couple of weeks, haven't we, in Mark chapter 10 preparing for it, Jesus teaching us and giving us these wonderful lessons that we've looked at over the last couple of weeks as we prepared ourselves for his entry into Jerusalem. And it's the start of Holy Week, the start of Easter week. As Christians would know, this passage that we're going to look at this morning, they know it as Palm Sunday. And so we're going to read it together. First of all, this morning is Mark chapter 11. And I'm going to read the first 11 or so verses to us. Mark chapter 11 and verse 1 says this. Now when they drew near to Jerusalem, to Bethphage and Bethany at the Mount of Olives, he sent two of his disciples. And he said to them, go into the village opposite you, and as soon as you have entered it, you will find a colt tied, on which no one has ever sat. Loose it and bring it. And if anyone says to you, why are you doing this? Then say, the Lord has need of it, and immediately he will send it here. And so they went their way, and they found the colt tied by the door outside on the street. And they loosed it. And some of those who stood there said to them, what are you doing, loosing this colt? And they spoke to them just as Jesus had commanded, and so they let them go. Then they brought the colt to Jesus, and they threw their clothes upon it, and he sat on it. And many spread their clothes onto the road, and others cut down leafy branches from the trees and spread them on the road. Then those who went before and those who followed cried out, saying, Hosanna, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. Blessed is the kingdom of our father David that comes in the name of the Lord. Hosanna in the highest. Mark chapter 11 and the first 11 verses. The first of the stories of Mark chapter 11 is the story of Palm Sunday, as we have read it here this morning. And what I would like to do for the next few moments that we have is just to consider the first part of the story, because it's quite a long story, 11 verses, and quite a lot happen in it. But the first few verses, maybe even the first 6 verses, are not about the actual events of Palm Sunday at all. They're not about the entry into Jerusalem, or they're not about the palm leaves being torn down and being laid on the street in front of Jesus, or the words of the crowd. The first 6 verses that Mark writes in Mark chapter 11 are all about the preparation for that Palm Sunday. Jesus, it would seem, in those verses, has a very specific idea of what he wants this day to be about, of how he wants it to go and what he wants to do on Palm Sunday. And he is quick to tell the disciples in those first 6 verses how he wants them to prepare for Palm Sunday. Now this is Mark's gospel, and Mark, as we know, isn't one to mince his words. He's not one to beat around the bush, but he likes to get straight into a story. And so if he's telling us in 6 verses about the preparation for Palm Sunday, then it must be important. And so that's what I want us to spend our moments here this morning looking at, how the disciples of Jesus and Jesus himself prepare for this first Palm Sunday. And it's a story that revolves around a donkey. A donkey is the main character in the preparations for Palm Sunday here in Mark chapter 11. And so that's what we're going to speak about. And that's what we're going to talk about this morning, a donkey. You know, as I've been thinking about it this week, a donkey is not the most inspiring of animals to spend our time talking about. It's not an animal that conjures up thoughts of awe or wonder like a lion would, perhaps, or like a racehorse would, perhaps. But we are talking about a donkey. I'm not a great one for titles to sermons, but I titled this sermon, and if you look on the link of Facebook that you clicked on to get here this morning, or on YouTube, then the title of this sermon is "What a Donkey." Now that's a phrase that I find myself using quite often. As many of you will know, I'm a Cardiff City fan, and as a Cardiff City fan, like so many people, I am desperately missing football. I'm desperately missing going down to Cardiff and enjoying or not enjoying a game on a Saturday afternoon or a Tuesday evening. And it's in my role as a Cardiff fan that I most often use this phrase, "what a donkey." I find myself saying that quite often on the terraces at the Cardiff City Stadium when at about 3:20 Cardiff are playing quite well and they're stringing passes together and it looks promising and the crowd are on the edge of their seat, and then the ball will arrive at the feet of a certain player and everything will break down, and he'll miscontrol it, or he'll let the ball run under his foot, or he'll pass it to no one or pass it into the crowd, and the whole crowd will groan, and the move with all its promise and all its excitement will come to an end. And I'll say, either under my breath or even on the top of my voice, depending on how angry I am, "What a donkey." The title of my sermon. You know, and when I say that as a Cardiff fan, when a player has messed up, it's not a term of endearment, it's not praise, or it's not encouragement, and it's not a compliment that I give, but it's likening a professional football player to this lowly, humble animal that's really not good for much, doesn't have much of a use in what we can get out of it. It's not really good for that much. And yet in our passage this morning, it's a donkey that is chosen, you know, and that's a key word for us this morning. It's chosen by Jesus himself to take him into Jerusalem on this most important of mornings, at the start of this most important of weeks. It's a donkey that is chosen by Jesus to take him on his journey into Jerusalem. And so we can perhaps ask ourselves this morning, well, what is the significance of this lowly and humble donkey, and what does it, or perhaps we'll say he, what does he teach us? Now, I've got 3 points to my sermon this morning. It's not often that I use 3 points in a sermon, but my Bible college tutors would be so proud of me because I've got 3 points this morning. 3 ways or 3 things this donkey is teaching us or signifying for us in his use as a donkey that Jesus rides upon. And so first of all, this donkey would tell us this morning, this donkey that Jesus rides upon into Jerusalem would tell us that we are reading about an event that is unique. Because Jesus describes this donkey to his disciples, and he tells them of a specific donkey that he wants to use and that he wants to ride upon. Jesus describes the donkey to the disciples and tells them to go and get it, not just the first one that they come across or any old donkey, but a specific one, says Jesus, one that had never been ridden on before, one that had never been used in this way before. You know, and that would tell me as I read the scriptures this morning that there is a uniqueness to this event. It's a special event. It's a one-off event, a once in a lifetime. Perhaps we could go further this morning, a once in history type of event. This is a unique event that happens in Jerusalem all those years ago that we are reading about and thinking about this morning. It would tell us that Jesus is not following in the steps of anyone else, that he is not copying or being like anyone else, that he is not like anyone else in anything that he is doing here on this morning, riding a donkey that has never been ridden and never been used in any way. You know, it's a reminder to you and me this morning as we read it, that when we come to Jesus and when we view him and when we think of him as we are on a Sunday morning again, that we can never put him into the same category as anyone else. That we can never liken him to anyone else in who he is and in what he has come to do. You know, this story tells us of God himself. Not just a good man or a great man, but of God himself riding into Jerusalem. The crowds that morning saw God himself coming into their lives and coming into their experience. And for you and me, as we view that through the Bible this morning, this is God himself coming into our lives and coming into our experience. Now, this is God who is not seen up above. He's not seen in the glory of heaven, and he's not just seen in the beauty of creation, but he's here with us. He is someone who is with us in the midst of everything that we go through. Someone who is seen and can be experienced with us in the confusion of life and in the fear of life and in the uncertainty of life, even in the pain of life. Uniquely in this event, Jesus rides into Jerusalem, and the world has never seen anything like it before. Excuse me. The first lesson this donkey would tell us is he would remind us this morning that this is a unique event. It's a unique event for this crowd in Jerusalem. It's a unique event for you and me. It's a unique event in all of history, and it's even a unique event in the life of this donkey who had never known anything like this before. And so this donkey, first of all, tells us that this is something different, something special, something unique that is happening on this Palm Sunday. The second thing I'd like us to consider this morning about this donkey is that it put Jesus on his journey onto the same level as those people who welcomed him into the city. If you can imagine and sort of try and picture it in your mind, as Jesus rode through the crowd on a donkey, he was on eye level with everyone else. Not higher than them, not more exalted than them, not greater than them, but on their level. He mixed in with the crowd that he was riding through on that morning. I'll try and give you an illustration to show you a little bit about what I mean. When I was a kid, trips to Puthcall were a big part of my childhood, as I suppose they were for many of us who are listening this morning. And it's to Puthcall that I often think as I read about a donkey as I have this week, because no day trip to Puthcall was ever complete, and no day on the beach was ever complete without a ride on the donkeys. Now, that was my experience. I'm sure there's a good chance it was yours as well, as you spent time on the beach and as you went for a donkey ride, because no day trip to Puthcall was ever complete without a ride on the donkeys. Now, and when I went on them in the beginning, when I was very young, I was a little bit worried and a little bit concerned, and tried my best to stay on, and grabbed on to this donkey for all I was worth, and went up and down the beach on them. But as the years went by, I can remember sitting on this donkey and casting an envious glance over to my left, because 30 yards further along the beach, there weren't donkeys trotting up and down, there were horses trotting up and down. And I remember being a kid sitting on a donkey that had looked so big to me when I was a lot smaller, but now I was growing up, it seemed small, and I wanted to be over there on the horses. And I wondered what it was like to be on a horse. And I remember on a number of occasions saying to my mother, "Can I go on the horses, Mum?" Now I'm 6 or 7. Now I've grown up a little bit. Now I'm older than my brother. Can I go on the horses instead, Mum? And she would always say, "No, Matthew, you're too little. And they're too big. And you need to grow up a lot more before I let you on the horses." And so I can remember being about 6 or 7, and I had to make do with trotting along on a donkey. You know, on a horse, it would have been a completely different experience altogether, because I would have been a lot higher up, and I would have been a little bit above the crowd, and I would have been a little bit higher, a little bit bigger, and sat a little bit more exalted than I would have on a donkey. I would have been easily seen on a horse. You know, I would have felt the kiddie on a horse. I would have felt, look at me, up here on this wonderful horse. But I had to make do with a donkey. And yet Jesus rides into Jerusalem on that Palm Sunday morning, not on a horse, but on a donkey. And as I said earlier on, the key word that we can remember this morning is this is Jesus' choice. It's not as if all the horses were unavailable and he had to make do with a donkey. This is Jesus' choice. And so Jesus chooses to ride not in authority and not in pomp and might and power, not exalted higher than everyone else, but Jesus chooses to ride into Jerusalem on this morning on a level with everyone else. Not at this highest place that he is so deserving of, because he is God himself, that he is so worthy of, but at this lowly position, at the same level as everyone else, at the same level as you and me, at the same level as those people who lined the streets of Jerusalem all those years ago. So what does that tell us this morning? God come in the flesh. God as human. God who is one of us. God who puts himself on our level. God who arrives in the city of Jerusalem, who comes into the lives of these men and women as lowly and humble. Jesus the pure, as the Bible would describe him, and holy and righteous, yet he is about to take upon himself the sins of the whole world, the guilt of you and me, the consequences of the sin of the world, of the sin of those men and women of Jerusalem, and mine and your sin as well this morning. He rides into Jerusalem not separate from us anymore, but representing us, not above us, but with us on our level, not above our suffering, not above our confusion, not above our sadness or our pain, but able to understand the life that we live, able to understand and to sympathize with us in the things that we go through. Hebrews gives us this wonderful verse and wonderful description of Jesus when it tells us that he is touched with the feelings of our infirmities. Not on a horse, in might and power and authority, not above us in his position and his stature and his reputation, but lowly and humble, on a level with you and me, able to understand the things that we go through, able to take upon himself our sin and our guilt. And then the last thing that this donkey would teach us this morning, the last thing that this donkey ride that Jesus takes into Jerusalem all those years ago teaches us. It tells us that Jesus doesn't ride into the city in splendor and in majesty, in glory, in power, or in authority. He rides in lowliness and humility. You know, many kings and many rulers have ridden into cities, and they have received royal welcomes as they do so. But they have rode in splendour and in position and in power and in majesty. They ride in on horses. They are above the crowd as a sign of their importance and as a sign of their strength. And they have come to inspire a crowd, to some sort of collective effort. Look at me. They would say, look how great I am and glorious I am. Look how talented I am. Now get behind me for a common goal, and we can achieve what we've always dreamed of achieving. If you remember of the Bethel bush and have heard me preach on a number of occasions, then you would know perhaps that one of my favourite films is the film Braveheart, the story of William Wallace and his fight against the English in Scotland. And there's a scene in Braveheart, and it's at the start of a battle and on a battlefield. At the start of the battle, then the English are over there on a hill, and as you look at them, there are thousands upon thousands of them, and they look mighty, and they look powerful, and they look unbeatable, and they have spears, and they have armour, and they have archers, and everything that an army could want, and they are all over there. And the Scots are all over here. And the Scottish army begin to look at the English, and then they look at themselves. And they realise that there are thousands more of them than there are of us. And they realise that they are better armed than we are. And they have more horses than we have. They have more spears than we have. And they are better prepared than ever we are. And this Scottish army looks at themselves, and they look at the English, and they start to lose heart. And they start to be discouraged. And they even start to wander off. And they think, look, I'm not going to die here on this battlefield. I'm going home. I'm going to keep myself safe. But then, right at the last minute, comes Mel Gibson. And he's William Wallace. And he turns up, and he's on a horse. And he's above everybody else. And he looks fantastic. If you've seen the scene in the film that I'm talking about, he's got his white and his blue makeup on. And he rides around the front line on his horse to this army that needs inspiring. And that needs something to rouse them into battle. And William Wallace turns up on his horse. And he rides in front of the Scottish army. Then he jumps off his horse and he delivers this rousing speech. And he rallies the troops. And essentially what he says, look, we can do this. You and me. Me with all that I can bring, and you with all that you can bring. If we get together, then we can do this. You know, and after this rousing speech, this Scottish army are so inspired. And they start to believe in this man who rides a horse up and down this front line. Look, they say to each other, if we can all go up together with this man leading us, this wonderful, charismatic, talented, mighty man, if we can get behind him, then we can go up together. We can do this. You know, and they do. They get together. And they get behind William Wallace, and up they go as one, and they give the English a right trouncing. It's a brilliant film. They were inspired behind a man on a horse. But then we come back to Palm Sunday this morning. It's a man, and he's not on a horse. He's on a donkey. It's a man who is not saying words that would inspire us this morning, or that would rally us. You know, this donkey that Jesus is riding would tell us this morning that Palm Sunday isn't about Jesus inspiring you and me. He hasn't come to Jerusalem to inspire us to be the best that we can be, to be the strongest that we can be, or the most talented that we can be. He hasn't come to Jerusalem to rouse us as an army. He's not shouting at these people of Jerusalem, look, get behind me. Go up with me. Join me in this quest. Join me in this fight. He doesn't come to Jerusalem to recruit an army. He hasn't come to Jerusalem that we might get behind him, so that all together we can defeat a great enemy. He hasn't come to Jerusalem to recruit an army. He hasn't come into my life this morning. He hasn't come into your life just to inspire me to be the best that I can be. He hasn't come into my life to say, look, you and me together, my strength and your strength, then we can overcome. Then we can go up and defeat a great enemy. He hasn't come to Jerusalem to inspire us or to recruit us into a great and a wonderful army. He's come to Jerusalem to serve. We talked about that, didn't we, a couple of weeks ago. We heard him say on the road to Jerusalem as he speaks to his disciples and tells them the Son of Man has come not to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many. We could change that a little bit when it comes to Palm Sunday and say the Son of Man hasn't come to recruit an army. The Son of Man hasn't come to unite the world. The Son of Man hasn't come that we could all be the best that we could be, the greatest that we could be, and then join with him and overcome anything in our lives. No, says Jesus, the Son of Man hasn't come to be served, but to serve and to give his life as a ransom for many. Now, just him, not the crowd, not an army, not even you and me. The Son of Man, he says, has come, not to be served, but to serve. This is not about me and him. This is not about Jerusalem and him. This is not about the world and him. It's about him and what he has come to Jerusalem to do, what he has come into the world to do. That he has come uniquely and on his own to give his life as a ransom for many. It's a journey that starts here in Jerusalem as Jesus rides a donkey, lowly and humble, at the same level as you and me. A journey that starts in Jerusalem on Palm Sunday but ends in just a couple of days' time with him dying alone on the cross of Calvary. There is no crowd when it comes to Calvary. There is no world with him. It's not even you and me with him. He has come uniquely and on his own to give his life as a ransom for many. Now, on the cross of Calvary, try as I might, I cannot help him there. Now, try as I might, I cannot join him there. The Bible would say that there is only one who can take the sin of the world upon his shoulders. There is only one who can become sacrifice for sin, for the sins of the world, but also for my sin and for your sin. I can't help him there. I can't be part of his sacrifice. I can't be part of his effort. I need him to suffer in my place. I need him to take upon himself my sin. I need him to become a ransom for me. He only can do those things. There is no room for me at the cross of Calvary. So as we finish this morning, as we come to a close, Palm Sunday isn't about inspiring the crowd. It's not about rousing or recruiting an army to march against a great enemy. And so I could ask myself the question this morning, well, what's my role here? How do I react to Jesus entering Jerusalem? How do I react to Jesus riding a donkey into Jerusalem all those years ago? How do I react today as I see him, as I think of him coming into my life and into my circumstances? What is my reaction to be? Well, Palm Sunday, if we let it this morning, answers some pretty deep and personal questions for you and me. Does God care? We could ask. Is God interested in me? Does he love me? Does he have a plan for me? Do I have any meaning for him? And do I have any value for him? You know, the Word of God, the Bible, has been answering those questions all throughout human history, because the Bible is full of instances where God says, yes, I care for the world. Yes, you are valuable to me. Yes, you have a place with me. Yes, I have a plan for you. But we could say this morning, well, Lord, where's the evidence for that? How can we know that? How can we be assured for that? Where's the evidence, Lord, for your love and for your care and for your compassion? Where's the evidence that perhaps I need when I wonder those deep questions? Does God care about me? Where's the evidence when I doubt, or when I fear, or when I'm going through some kind of dark situation, or even when I suffer? Where's the evidence, Lord, that you are interested in me? Well, then there's Jesus. Then there's God himself. And he rides into Jerusalem on this Palm Sunday morning. And it's God saying to the world, I'm here. It's God saying to the world, I'm with you in the circumstances that you were going through. It's God saying to the world, in your suffering, I'm here with you. And in your confusion, I'm here with you. And in your doubt, I'm here with you, because I care, because I love, because I have a plan for you. I'm here with you, God announces as he rides on a donkey into Jerusalem all those years ago. And so what's my reaction to that? As I look at him present in my life, as he again answers those questions. Do you care, Lord? Well, yes, I'm here for you. Do you love me, Lord? Well, yes, I'm here for you. Do you have a plan and a purpose for me, Lord? Yes, I'm here for you. What is my reaction to that? You know, I think we could do a lot worse this morning than to take the example of the crowd. Because what this crowd did is they celebrated God with them. They got excited about God with them. They tore down palms from trees and they lay their clothes before him, because this is good news. It's exciting news. It's wonderful news. And they began to cheer, and they began to sing, and they began to shout, and they began to celebrate. You know, they're an example to you and me, and we could do far worse than do what they did. To celebrate this wonderful fact that God loves us and has demonstrated that love through the example of his Son. To celebrate like this crowd did, to tear down a palm leaf from a tree and wave it in celebration this morning, to lay our coats down for him to walk on, to be happy and to be joyful that there is a God who loves you and me and who has a plan for you and me and has sent his Son to be a ransom for many, yes, but to be a ransom for you and me too. It's wonderful good news and worthy of celebration this morning. We've come to a close and we've come to an end from our first look at Mark chapter 11. And I would pray that you've taken in what I've seen as I've read through these words this morning. Have a great week. Have a great couple of days. The weather is improving apparently, hour by hour. The Lord bless you and be with you, and God willing, I'll see you all next week. Amen.